Welcome to today's expert talk. My name's Pauline. I'm in the dark. I'm actually in an office, a well-lit office, but it looks like I'm in the dark. And today we're talking to Ramsay McGhee, and Ramsay is going to tell us about the exciting humanitarian work he does in Malawi with the schools, a particular school. And I'm going to pass over now to Jessie, who's the Education and International Convener, and Jessie Meikle actually set up the talk with Ramsay as part of the SWI Get Back Together sessions. So thank you very much, Jessie. I'll pass over to you now.
Thank you, Pauline. And good afternoon, everyone. I hope you enjoy our talk today. We're very honoured to have Mr. Ramsay McGhee with us. He's a very busy gentleman. I'm sure Ramsay's no stranger to you all, as he very kindly hosted a Scottish evening earlier on this year for us. Before his retirement, he was Chief Superintendent for all operational policing in the Highlands and Islands. And in 2014, he was honoured by being appointed one of the Deputy Lord Lieutenants for Ross and Cromarty, Skye and Loch Alsh. In November 2018, Ramsay was appointed Grand Master of all Scottish lodges. This involves travelling all over Scotland and to all other Scottish lodges in over 40 countries worldwide. It was during this time, when he was Deputy Grand Master, that he first became involved with the Mountain View School for Deaf in Malawi. And I'm sure he's many stories to tell us. And it was great pleasure. I'll now hand over to Ramsay.
Thank you, Jessie.
Thank you very much. If I can just share the screen. And that should be it, I think.
It's coming, yes.
Yeah.
Great.
Well, good afternoon, ladies. Thank you very much indeed for your very kind invitation. I'm absolutely delighted to be with you today. And before I start, I've got an apology to make for the last time. We get into one fair old fankle with the technology, and things just didn't work out. But I was telling Jessie and Anne and company there that the sequel to that story was that the computer eventually went on fire. So hopefully today, this one will hold out and we'll get through the talk. I want to take you on a wee journey today, and it goes away back to 2008, basically, when I was asked out of the blue if I would go out to Malawi to install the master of one of our lodges out there, Lodge David Livingston. And then the wee sting in the tail was, but when you go, could you maybe raise, you know, around about £1,000 or so for the Mountain View School for Deaf Children? And that was it, where it started back in 2008. So 12 of us from the province up here in Ross and Cromarty decided that we would take up the challenge. And that's us in Inverness bus station, ready for the epic journey, thanks to Stagecoach, down to Perth. We got to Perth and discovered that the bus that was supposed to take us to Glasgow was fully booked, and we couldn't get any further than Perth until they set a new bus for us. So the journey got off to a somewhat inauspicious start. But since we visited in 2008, we've been very heavily involved with the lodges out there, but more particularly with the Mountain View School. The Mountain View School has normally around about 140 to 150 young people, ranging from about 3 or 4 years of age up to about 18 years of age. And all of them, without exception, are profoundly deaf. One or two had residual hearing, but by and large, every one of them, you can say they are profoundly deaf. But when we go out there, we've been very privileged indeed, not only to visit the children in Mountain View, but we've experienced basically the way of life in Malawi, some of their customs. We've had a tremendous time seeing some of the wildlife, as well as the culture and heritage of the country. So today I would like to take you, the ladies of SWI, along part of that same journey through Malawi, and I hope and trust that it will be of interest to you. If I can just point out to you, Malawi is a kind of long, thin country, and it's bordered on one side by Mozambique. In fact, on two sides of the Mozambique up to Zambia. And then in the north, we have Tanzania. Now, some of you will possibly be well acquainted with Equindeni. The Church of Scotland are very involved in Equindeni. And you can see the top arrow there indicates roughly where Equindeni is in Malawi. So it's way up north. And if you look right down to the bottom, you'll see Mountain View School just south of Blantyre. So we are operating quite a significant distance, roughly about 10 hours drive from Equindeni down to Mountain View School. And in between, in the middle, is Lilongwe, the capital, and that's the major airport, albeit Mountain View, Blantyre also has an airport, but it's quite something else as airport in Blantyre. So that's the setup. We are heading right down south to the bottom. Now, we generally, when we arrive in Lilongwe because there are far more flights there. And the easiest way to get from Lilongwe down to the school is to drive down the main thoroughfare. Now, on the road down, we pass quite a significant number of villages. And this picture you see in front of you is very typical of villages. Now, the roofs of these wee houses are made from maize straw, and the houses themselves are built from mud bricks. Now, that in itself causes a problem for them because, as you'll see later in the presentation, those mud houses can quite easily get washed away. We pass lots and lots of those wee villages on the road south. If I was able to wave a magic wand over Malawi, it would be to bring fresh water into those villages. They have no fresh water at all. And it's the ladies, the women folk, whose job it is to go and get the water on a daily basis. And those women will walk 4 or 5 miles to a well, fill up the big urn and carry it back on their heads, back to the village. And that urn of water is, basically has to do them for everything for the rest of the day until they go back the following day. So that's just a typical wee village that you'll see anywhere on the road south between Lilongwe and Blantyre. That is, if you like, the sort of equivalent of the A9 between Inverness and Perth. The only thing is there that the road's probably better surface than ours. And you can see there that lots of folk walk, and I don't think you can home in on that, but if you have a wee look, the children there are all barefoot. They don't have shoes, they're all barefoot. Bicycles are quite prolific in Malawi, and some of the lorries there are not exactly the latest models, but that is typical of a view between Lilongwe and Blantyre. You'll see folk walking everywhere. This is another mode of transport that's quite common. This is used more for a commercial purpose, the mule and cart. But one which really took our fancy was the bicycle taxi. But I think when this guy that was driving the bicycle taxi passed us, he was delighted that he had a lightweight woman in the back and that we weren't wanting a wee lift. They go for miles, they cycle for miles, and for the equivalent of about 10 pence, you can the cycle taxi will take you anywhere you want to go. This, ladies, is the Malawi equivalent of Marks and Spencer. This is a typical street market, and to this day, very often, no money will change hand. They will barter, and they will barter maize straw for clothes or something along those lines. But bartering is quite a common way of dealing with things at those open markets. But that's very typical of a street market anywhere in rural Malawi. Now, not only do we see the countryside, but we've been very privileged that the guys out there have taken us to various places. But one place that we see all the time is when we're on Lake Malawi, and it just brings home to you the poverty that exists in Malawi. In that top left-hand picture, you can see the age of the kids in that, and they don't go to school. They're out there fishing, and the catches in Lake Malawi now are pretty meager. And in the bottom picture, that's typical of a scene at night as they all head out. And it's quite a picture when darkness descends. They've all got what I would call a tilly lamp, and they've all got tilly lamps in these wee boats. And if you look out at night along the horizon, all you see is a row of wee tilly lamps shining away. And they will fish all night and bring the catch in the morning. And very often the catch is pretty grim. This is St. Michael and All Angels Church in Blantyre itself. We've attended a few church services here, and it's actually built on the site of the original Scottish mission in Blantyre. And this is an area that David Livingstone would have known in his days in the area. So it's a very fine building, and we're always made very, very welcome. This is President Hastings Banda. We've been only once, I think, when we've been out there to see the mausoleum for him, which is at the back there, a statue of him. He was quite a character. He was Prime Minister of what used to be Nyasaland, and it was he who was in the chair, if you like, when they got independence, and he became the first president of Malawi in 1964. He did receive much of his education in Edinburgh, and he belonged to the Church of Scotland, a very prolific member of the Church of Scotland. But Banda was one of these Marmite guys. Folk either loved him or detested him. There was nobody down the middle. But he did make his mark in history and led what's now Malawi into independence. This lady's typical of the rose farms that we've been privileged to visit. Those blooms have just been picked, and within 48 hours of being picked in Malawi, they will be on the shelves of supermarkets in the UK and Europe. There are transport planes leave Lilongwe every single night, carrying nothing other than flowers. Sometimes you hear criticism that it's cheap labour, etc. Well, I don't actually subscribe to that argument. I think from what we've seen, the rose farms, mainly run by the Dutch, provide much needed employment for people in those localities. So that's the Malawian rose farms, really well worthwhile visiting if you're ever out in that country. One of the things I love when we go to Malawi is if we get taken out to some of the areas where we see the wildlife in their natural habitat. And this is us on Lake Shiri. And this is probably one of our latest, I think this was around about 2017, maybe 2019. And the reason I know that is we've got life jacket things on. Up until then, those were never heard of in Malawi. And you went out without any kind of protection at all. Not that I think these would help you any, because when you see what's in the water, a life jacket's not going to do you an awful lot of good. We're privileged to see scenes like this. They're absolutely beautiful. And when you see this in its natural habitat and not in a zoo or in a wildlife park, but they are where they belong in their natural habitat in places like Malawi. This one's maybe not just as healthy. This particular croc sat and watched us as we passed, and then it just took off at a fast rate of knots under the boat. I thought, oh, this is it, curtains. We'll be breakfast, lunch and dinner for this thing. But no, I don't know where it disappeared to, but it took off under the boat, and was I mighty glad that we were still in the boat. This is an impala, beautiful, beautiful wee creatures. And you see them all over Malawi. They're absolutely beautiful. And probably the biggest killer of all in Malawi are the hippos. They get credited for killing more human beings than any other animal. And again, there are times when they completely submerge, and then all of a sudden they come to the surface again. But the main purpose behind all of our visits is to go and visit and support the Mountain View School for deaf children. Now, in this the school, while they're taught all the basics, in addition to that, they're taught a whole range of life skills, as you'll see in a minute. It's quite difficult for us at times to understand the way things operate. It's not uncommon in Malawi and in other parts of Africa. If a child is born with any form of deformity at all, they will simply be left to die. They're just taken and left at the roadside or wherever to die. With deafness, they don't realize that the child is deaf until they're that bit older. Now, what's happened here with the Mountain View School, there were so many deaf children, and a lot of this deafness emanates from the fact that the parents of the children are riddled with AIDS. And one of the offshoots of AIDS is that the children born have all sorts of issues and problems, one of which is profound deafness. And of the 140 odd kids in the school, I would say that probably any one time, 60 to 70% of the children themselves have AIDS. And probably about the same proportion are orphans. The parents have died. And very often the kids are looked after when they do go home by grandparents. And we very often find that when the school term finishes, some of the kids will sit and nobody will come for them. Now, the school was set up by the Catholic Church in Holland, and the deal was that the Catholic Church would pay for the building of the school, and the Malawian government would deal with the revenue costs. Well, the Catholic Church have certainly kept their side of the deal, but the Malawian government, I'm afraid, haven't kept their side. The church are still heavily involved with it, and some of the nuns in the school they've been there since day one, I think. Lovely, lovely ladies, and they take such good care of the children. So as well as being taught sign language in Swahili. They are taught to read and write, and they get all these other life skills. When they get these life skills, they are actually accepted back into the village because they can contribute. But if it wasn't for that, they would just simply be left to their own devices. It's pretty sad, really, but that is the way of life in some parts of Africa. In the school, one of the first things that they get taught is how to sew. Now, when you've got 12 Scottish Freemasons arriving in the school, there's not a lot that we could do to help in the sewing class, other than admire the fact that the sewing machines that they use were built in Clydebank in Scotland and taken out. And these are the old-fashioned pedal things, as you can see there. We have sent out a couple of electric ones lately, but the trouble is that you might get electricity today, but you might not get it tomorrow. You might not even get it the next day. Sometimes you might get it in the morning. Sometimes you might get it at night, but there's no guarantee that you will get electricity. So it's far easier for them to use the old treadle type sewing machines. And what they make are, you know, things like I showed you there a minute ago. Very simple, basic clothes that they can actually wear, and some that they can take and sell at the street markets to bring some income into the school. This was more in our line. And this photo was taken in 2008. And as you can see, the woodwork class was pretty cluttered. There was no direction at all. There was nobody in the staff who could actually show them what to do. If you look to the sort of left of the picture, you'll see a wee stool sitting up in one of the workbenches. That was about the sum total of their ability. And even at that, the schools were, the wee stools were pretty roper. The minute what walked in, Angus Ross there, who's right in the middle of the picture. Angus is a joiner. And we had another guy with us, and I've not seen him in the picture, Donnie Gunn. Angus and Donnie just naturally get in and started to help the kids to do things. And we were there all day, and they were working away with them, trying to show. And of course, with the kids being stone deaf, it was quite a challenge for them. But no, they worked away, and it proved very, very sort of beneficial to the children to have somebody who actually knew what they were doing. But that girl with her back to you there with a white top on, she had a hammer head in her hand. There was no shaft in the hammer, just a hammer head, and she was knocking 7 bells out of a nail into a piece of wood. And of course, they can't hear anything, but the noise in the class was quite unbelievable. So that night, with a wee bit of inspirational help from Glenmorangie, we had an impromptu committee meeting, and we decided to purchase £1,000 worth of tools and engage and pay for a permanent woodwork teacher. Well, that first decision was probably one of the worst decisions I ever took in terms of Malawi. We thought we were doing a big favour, like £1,000 worth of tools in the local economy would be great for them. And in that sense it was. But unfortunately, the tools that we bought, they were all imported from either China or India, and they were pretty poor. So we learned a very salutary lesson with that one. Anyway, that's what we decided to do. And then, you know, when we went back in 2011, which was the next kind of official visit, although I'd been in between times, you can see the difference that the having a woodwork instructor made. The stools the quality was far better than it had been. But to our great astonishment, not only were they making those wee stools and making them well, They were also making first-class garden quality garden furniture. And Raymond there is just showing us some of the stuff that they started to make with the new woodwork teacher. And we were really over the moon with it. And that's some of the stuff that you see there. And you'll notice that, you know, despite all their difficulties, these kids are always smiling. So, as I say, the tools that we bought in 2008, poor quality. When we went back in 2011, there was only one set left. So more inspiration was required, and it was forthcoming. So how do we resolve the problem with the tools? Well, what we did, we made 2 appeals back at home here. We made 1 appeal throughout our province, and a friend of mine in the province of Fife and Kinross, he took the appeal down to them. And between the 2 provinces, we managed to accumulate a whole range of second-hand tools, which were of far better quality than the ones that we bought from India or China. And we got them all sorted, cleaned, and what have you. And then we got them all packed up, and off they went to Malawi. Now, that first lot, we were very, very lucky to find this outfit called the Raven Trust. And the Raven Trust did a fantastic job for us. They took all of those crates of tools out there for something like £300. It was quite unbelievable. And we've used them 2 or 3 times since, but unfortunately they no longer exist. But the Raven Trust are quite involved with, what the hell's happened there? The Raven Trust are quite involved with Equindeni. So they took them to Equindeni. And here you see the tools being unloaded from the container. Now, as you'll recall, Equindeni is way up here in the north, and we wanted them south of Blantyre, right in the south of the country. And that in itself proved problematical. But one of the members of the lodge in Goni in Lilongwe, he has a transport business, and he had to take stuff to Equindeni, so he brought all the stuff back down for us, and it eventually got to the school. And once it got to the school, they were over the moon, and they started getting stuff sorted out, and they were over the moon with the tools. Now, with the woodwork teacher, you can see the difference in the classroom. The clutter has gone. He doesn't allow any nonsense at all. He's a lovely wee guy. And what he's got them doing is unbelievable. We pay for the wood, we pay his wages, and the results are quite astonishing. This is what they're doing now, this kind of thing. And compared to these stools that they were making in 2008, we're just over the moon. We're delighted with it. Now, while we were there in 2008, they told us about the chicken project. And at that time, they had 600 chickens, but they wanted 900 chickens, but they had nowhere to put the chickens. So we got together, and after the pupils demonstrated to us, and they were very, very proud, because this is one of the things that they're taught is animal husbandry. And they were very, very keen to show us how they kept everything clean, how they fed the chickens, and one thing and another. So we were over the moon with all that, and we decided that we'd build a new chicken house for them so that they could get 900. Now, don't ask me why they needed 900. It's something to do with the sort of cycle of the whole thing. But what that did, with 900 chickens, it gave them chickens that they reared to produce eggs. It gave them chickens that get their necks thrown, and it gave the children vitamins with the fresh meat maybe twice a week. And the manure from the chickens was used to help them in their wee gardens that they've got, growing all sorts of vegetables. So we were only too happy to, you know, provide funding to get the chicken house built. And as somebody said to me at one point, the chicken house was far better accommodation than some of them had back in their local villages. But nevertheless, it did the business. They also had a wee herd of 4 cows. And this is some of the older boys who were looking after the cows. And when they heard that we were coming out, the 2 of them found ties and put the ties on for the occasion. And they were very, very delighted to show us how they looked after the cows, etc. Now, again, they reckoned that a 5th cow would make all the difference. So we decided that we would provide the 5th cow, and we arranged for artificial insemination. You'll notice that I say that we arranged for it. We had nothing to do with it. We just brought folk in, and they've now got the 5 cows. So we were delighted with that. They also delight in showing us some of their culture. Now, again, ladies, you've got to remember that these children are profoundly deaf. They can't hear a thing. And this is one of them. He's dressed up, and his drum, although you can't see it there, his drum is resting on the floor of the stage. And then the girls come on to do the dance. He bangs out the beat, and the girls pick up that beat through the floor. And unbelievably, their timing is just spot on. And they demonstrate for us every time we go out the new dances that they've learned. And it would bring tears to your eyes to see those girls, knowing that they are profoundly deaf, yet they can feel the beat of the music, and they dance to a rhythm that's just absolutely spot on. We take with us when we go out all sorts of things. Over the years, we've learned what to take and what not to take. And, you know, things like paper and books, etc., are a no-no. They're far too heavy. So we take all sorts of bits and pieces. And here we've got football strips. We've been donated football strips from quite a number of teams, including Inverness, Clach and Cudden. And I'm desperately keen to know how they translate that into Swahili. But they'll maybe tell us the next time we go out. So these football strips were initially intended for the boys, but the girls, who've got a netball team and a very successful netball team, they decided, we like those, we're having them. The boys can come further down the line. So there you are, there's the girls. And again, you've got to see, you know, they're always smiling. They're just so happy when they get something like that. We also take with us medical supplies, although on occasion they've gone awry at airports, have been stolen and one thing and another. But on this particular occasion, we managed to get most of the stuff through. And the nuns who look after the welfare of the children, they're delighted because they can't get anything like this in Malawi. And when I say anything like this, I'm talking about, you know, just very, very simple things like aspirin, or, you know, anything that you and I can walk into Boots or into Tesco or any of these places and buy over the counter. They just cannot get their hands on it. So when we take out all this sort of stuff, they're over the moon, absolutely over the moon. We try not to forget the wee ones. And back in 2015, I used to go and play in a local care home here before it closed down. And every time I went down to play, I would go down maybe once a month. And there was an old lady in there called Mrs. McGhee. And Babs McGhee was a lovely, lovely soul. And whenever I was down playing, she always wanted me to go and sit down and have a wee blether before I went away home and tell her all about what was happening in the school in Malawi. She took a great interest in it. So she said to me once, would it be okay if I knit some tools for the wee ones? I said, they would be delighted. So Babs knitted all these wee things that you see there. And we sent them out and the kids were ecstatic. And I was over the moon too, because we got this photo and we got it back and I took it down and I let Babs see it. And she was just over the moon. And she died just a couple of days after that. So it was lovely to see Babs seeing the kids enjoying the fruits of her handiwork. In 2015, when we were out, oh, what a disaster. And you can see here, ladies, what happens when your house is built with mud bricks. They just get washed away. It was total devastation in and around Blantyre especially. So what effect did that have on the school? Well, this is the road or the wee village that you pass through going to the school. And this is the road. I took this photo on a good day. That was the road on a good day. You can just imagine what it was like when the floods were there. Nobody could get in or out of the school for some 5 weeks. So the only food available to them were the chickens. Obviously, all the families of the children were hit very hard. And while the families are asked to pay a term fee, the vast majority can't afford it. Some do, some don't, but because of the floods, the income stream for the school just died altogether. What was quite alarming for us was the fact that the electrical supply in the school was adversely affected. We were quite concerned about the danger or the potential danger to the pupils and the staff. So the outcome of that was at one point that they had no electricity at all. And the water they get, the fresh water, comes from a well about 40 meters down. So without a pump, they couldn't get any water. And we were really, really concerned. I got a phone call in the middle of the night from Malawi saying, look, we've got major, major problems. There's no water in the school at all. Now, all these kids that I mentioned earlier, most of them have got AIDS. Their immune system is shot to bits. And there was real concern that they were all going to go down with cholera. And if that had happened, then I think probably the next major expense we would have had would be to arrange for the burial of all these children. Fortunately, it didn't happen because we were able, not without some difficulty, but we had a quick meeting here in the province, and I approached Ross County Football Club, and they very kindly gave us the use of the Victoria Suite there, and we held a race night. Now, when this pump blew up, first of all, we were told it was going to cost £6,500 to replace it. And then I got another phone call saying, look, one of the guys in the lodge up in Lilongwe, he deals in solar power, and he reckons that he can do a solar pump for less, for just under £5,000. So on the night of the race, we had all the usual bits and pieces, as well as the race night, you know, rolling a pound at the bottle of whiskey and raffles and dear knows what all. And at the end of the night, we sat down and counted the takings, and it came to just under £5,000. So we were able to make a phone call. And there you are. There's our solar panel pump. And that's been working away ever since with great success. And of course, the other beauty of that, ladies, is that they don't have an electricity bill to pay because that's free, gratis, and for nothing. All they do is use the Malawian sunshine. So with that back at work, they were able to get water back in to water the plants. They were able to have toilet facilities. they were able to get washed and showered and all the rest of it. So that was a major issue for us. And I'm delighted that the guys in the province came up trumps very, very quickly, and we were able to sort of save the day. We went back out as a group in 2017, and this is Modester G, the headmistress. And if ever there was an angel on earth, that is her. What she does for these children is unbelievable. So we had our usual planning meeting with her. And when I asked Modester, what are the priorities? The tears just started to well up in her eyes. And she said, Ramsay, the major issue at the moment, we've got no food. Now they've got 140 children there, and you know the basic staple diet is maize, and they had nothing, and they were really, really worried about the whole thing. We carried on, and we discovered that the mattresses that the children were sleeping on were at that point 21 years old. They had no blankets, they only had one computer in the school. The teachers were handwriting exam questions, and they've no transport in the school. So I immediately got contact made back here with the province, and I gave them the lowdown, and they very kindly sent me £4,000 there and then. And with that, we were able to order 150 bags of maize. And you can see the exchange rate there. The mattresses cost us £1,833, or if you prefer, 1,704,000 or nearly 705,000 kwachas, Malawian kwachas. Try saying that if you get the drama in. So we got that money out, and as a result, we started work there and then. And here was great excitement, the maize arriving at the school. And there it is. Gordon is my grand superintendent out there, a lovely guy. And here he in Modester with enough maize to see the school through the next and the following term. So get that sorted out, and Modester was just ecstatic. Then we had the mattresses. Oh, what a palaver with the mattresses arriving. They were just absolutely over the moon, and far, far superior quality to what they had. And that's some of the pupils, some of the staff at the school with the mattresses. So they're now sleeping in relative comfort compared to what they were. Other things, here Anne is giving out wee wristbands. It just says, I can't remember with those ones, it's Scotland or Edinburgh or something that was written on them. And this is one of my Bassmasters up in Ullapool, who has a shop at the front in Ullapool. And he very kindly donated those wee wristbands. And the kids love them. Here they are all waving with their wristbands on. And as you can see, some of their wee arms are so thin that the bands just go right up to the elbows. The big ones at the back were getting a hump because they didn't get one. So what we did with them, we take with us, we deflate all sorts of balls, footballs, rugby balls, netballs, any kind of balls, and we take hand pumps out with us. And they're in seventh heaven with those balls. And again, ladies, you will see that they're in their bare feet. Every time we go back, it's amazing to see what they do, the concentration they've got, what they're able to do. And this is a teacher, this is a woodwork teacher, and he doesn't let them off with anything. And here he's making sure that that joint at the end is square, and they're not going to get away with anything less than that. And this is some of the latest furniture that they're making. And I was out twice. I was out last year and I was out in 2019. And they are now, the wee Manny has got them working with fabric now. They're not very good. So if any of you ladies with all those skills want to have a wee nip out to Mountain View and show them how to make cushions, I'm sure they would be delighted. But you can just see the seat in the left-hand side there, behind that wee fella. And that's something that they covered themselves. It's maybe not just 100% perfect, but again, it's something that can sell at the market. There you are, that's a better view of them. And that's how they pull them together. One of the guys down in Glasgow, Rob McGhee, he works for Strathclyde Council, and they've got a scheme out in Malawi whereby they take computers out to various places. And I managed to talk Rob in to supply the school with computers, and he very kindly obliged. So we've now got what they call their computer laboratory in the school. And that is just so, so good. It's magic. One problem we do have with it, and we have the same problem here to a degree, is with the printers. The cost, pardon me, the cost of cartridges is so high that we just can't afford them. It's a nightmare trying to find a decent source for cartridges. But Rob has given them all the kit. There you are with the monitor, the computer, the printer, and the kids are in seventh heaven. Now, I was back out last year, and it became obvious that, again, the tools that we sent out were coming to the end of practical usefulness. So we made another appeal to the guys in this province and also in Perthshire East this time. But a lot of guys throughout Scotland took it up. And we were able to send 23 boxes of tools out to boost the thing for them. Now, the Raven Trust no longer exists. So this time, the set sail, we drove the tools down to London, and they were put into a container in London, and they were put in the container ship Santa Ursula. And it set sail from London in September last year, and it eventually arrived in Durban, and the tools were taken off in Durban and taken across land to Malawi. And again, that wasn't without incident, but we eventually got the tools to the school in one piece. The difference being that it cost us, well, just under £1,000 this time round to get the tools out using this way of doing it. This is just a wee message that we got from Gordon. And, you know, I send a message out to the boys in the lodges round about here now and again, just to remind them of what they have achieved with the kids out there. A lot of them don't just realise or appreciate what they have done. And if there's one thing I would love to do, it's take everybody out to meet the kids in the school. The very first time we went out, they were very cautious of us. But now the wee ones just run at us, and all they want is a cuddle. And the big ones are very formal, and the hand comes out to shake hands with them. And we've now got a wee bit of sign language that we can use to say good morning, boys and girls. And we do that in Swahili. So there you are. I'm multilingual at last. Ladies, we've still got a lot to do out there, continuing to support the school. We've now got a new provincial master here, and he is committed for his 5-year term now to continue to support the school and our Scottish brethren out there. And for their sake, we really need to do that so that we can make dreams come real. Thank you very much for your attention. I hope it's been of some interest to you. and it might give you some ideas of things that you as an organisation can do. I should make it abundantly clear that when I do this, you know, sometimes folk will have a collection and what have you, and say that is not what we want. What we really want from the presentation is that folk will get a better understanding of what Freemasonry is about, and secondly, to give organisations like yourselves the opportunity to look at doing something similar, so that you can have your own wee project. And believe you me, there is no shortage of projects in Malawi or in places like Uganda, parts of Kenya, all the rest of it. It's quite soul destroying when you see some of it. But I think you can see there that what we've tried to do is use the skill sets that we've got to help the children in the way that we can. You ladies have got totally different skill sets that could help children in other ways. And if that's maybe giving you a wee bit of thought along those lines today, then I'm absolutely delighted. So thank you very much for bearing up with me. And again, my apologies for making a mess of it the first time round and we couldn't get in. But hopefully you've enjoyed that today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ramsay. That was fabulous. That was fabulous. Well done. It's all looks amazing. It must be very rewarding, is it? Is it very rewarding?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Lovely. So I'm going to hand over now to someone you'll be familiar with, your lovely wife, Anne, to do the thank you, and then we'll throw it open to some questions.
She's still speaking to me.
Well, she should be. She should be. So I'll ask Anne to unmute. Thanks, Anne. And here you go.
Ramsay, please accept our thanks and appreciation for a most informative presentation and allowing the ladies to share the magnificent work carried out by the dedicated staff at Mountain View School. It is always a delight when we visit the school, when the little ones come running out to greet us and just throw their arms around our legs. It is just such a tear-jerking moment, ladies, when you see these beautiful little faces looking up at you and you just feel, I could just take you home. But however, we can't do that, but it's always a very, very worthwhile visit. So Ramsay, on behalf of everyone present today, thank you very much indeed, and our very best wishes for the next visit. Ladies, please join me in our usual way of thanking our guest.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anne. Thank you. So I'm going to see if does anyone have any questions for Ramsay?
Yeah, please, any questions? No problem.
Any questions? So what's the youngest child that the school supports, Ramsay?
They're around about 3 years of age when they come there at first. Again, that's round about the age where parents discover that there is a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not unknown for those kids to be deserted at that stage.
Mm.
You know, they'll just take them out and leave them somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the reasons that the Catholic Church started the school. And since then, they've started another couple in different parts of Malawi. It's incredible when you see what they actually do.
Mm-hmm.
The first time we went out, they asked if we could possibly take batteries for the hearing aids for the kids with residual hearing.
Mm-hmm.
And I contacted the deaf school in Aberdeen and showed them what they were using, and they said, there's no chance that you'll get batteries for that. We stopped using that equipment 20 years ago.
Mm.
You know, it was huge, big thing. The kids hated them because
Yeah.
they carry these batteries about in their pocket with cables coming up over and in. Oh, they just detested them. So we weren't able to do anything with that at all.
And how did COVID affect your A, your fundraising, and B, your actual visits?
COVID has been a nightmare. The school has been closed. Malawi has been hit very, very badly with COVID, and the government are doing not a lot to assist. It's very difficult to get vaccinations there. The hospitals have got no oxygen. So if you end up in hospital with COVID, there's not a lot they can do for you. It's just been horrendous. The good news is that the school's back again. It's back up and running once more, and the kids are back in school. They've sort of tried to insulate the schools so that there's nobody coming in that could bring COVID in with them.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a nightmare because there's a village. That slide where you saw the car going through the village, that village is only about 2 or 3 miles from the actual school. In fact, when we put the tools in, the new tools, we had a wee problem with folk from that village going down, breaking into the school to try and get the tools. So, you know, if they come in with COVID, it's curtains, because these kids won't, you know, their immune system won't stand up to anything like COVID.
No. And I know you said that you weren't looking for any money or anything, but is there anything else that you think that the SWI could do? I mean, the ladies do have things that they knit for and crochet for and things like that, you know.
Yeah, I mean, there's all sorts. I'd love to take you out there and just
an SWI outing.
Yes, outing, yeah.
It beats going to Achilty for the day.
Yeah.
But you know, it's just that, you know, when we walked into that woodwork class for the first time, you know, Donnie and Angus just automatically went into here's what you do mode. And I've got no two doubts that if you ladies walked into the sewing class, you would go into the same kind of mode with them. But you know, there's all sorts of we are part of the Scotland-Malawi partnership, and that's something that I would sort of recommend to you if you contact the Scotland-Malawi partnership. And they have got tremendous resourcing, and they can point you in the right direction of a wee project that, you know, an institute could take up, or the federation could take up, or whatever. You know, to give it gives a wee bit of direction, and they just love to get involved. That tools. I mean, we had a lady, her husband died. That's not yet. This lady, her husband died last week in the church, and she said to me, well, he didn't die. You know what I mean? Said to me, I've got tools in the garage, come up and get them.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's folk respond in a fantastic way.
Yes. I see that Helen in Heysham has got her hand up. Thanks, Helen.
Yeah. Good afternoon, Ramsay, and good afternoon, ladies.
Hello. Nice to see you
there.
again, Helen.
Thank you very much, Pauline. I just wanted to say thank you very much. A lovely presentation and super talk. One of my what I was going to say was about 35 years ago, one of our young priests from Blackpool, when he was ordained, he went out to Malawi as a missionary. And I think he was involved with the school out there. But when he came back to give us a presentation. The things that he was looking for was, yes, the bikes, but with solid wheels so that they couldn't cope with punctures, and wheelbarrows, solid wheelbarrows that he was raising funds for. And I think fresh water all those years ago was an issue.
Yeah, still.
It still is an issue from your presentation. It's still very much an issue. And, you know, when you've got the COP26 climate change starting in Glasgow, these issues, I suppose, should be addressed, and hopefully, you know, will be. But it was very interesting. Thank you very much. And yeah, hopefully, you know, the WI can get involved in some way or another. So thank you.
Thank you, Helen. Thank you. So, Anne, I'd like to ask you a question, if you don't mind. How is it going out as a you know, and you obviously Ramsay's involved, but you're actively involved because of him, probably. But what would you say is your experience? Is it quite a full-on experience? I know you talked about the children running at you, but.
Yes, I mean, when you see the children, they are just so well behaved. And, you know, as Ramsay said, we take out the football strips and rugby balls, footballs, and they know that they're there, but there's no way that they would move from the area that they're sitting on until Modester, their headmistress, will let them move. And then they're just so enthusiastic, the enthusiasm. And, you know, as Ramsay said, they are so grateful. Giving them a little pencil is just absolute. You see their faces when they see that, and you think what our children have here.
Yeah,
you know, it's just so rewarding. It really is. It would be lovely to take some of our children over to let them see what they have here and compared to what the children have in Malawi. Yes, but it's a most rewarding experience to be able to go there. I feel so lucky that I've been there twice, and hopefully look forward to being invited to go again in the near future.
Thanks, Anne. Thanks. Does anyone have any questions, or should we let everybody? Oh yeah, Fiona. Hello, Fiona. Nice to see you.
I'm just wondering what happens to the children once they move on from the school, when the older children, you know, can no longer stay there. What happens to them, Ramsay?
It's a very good question, and you know, and the positive side, when I was out last year, March, when it was just before the lockdown, Modester was so excited. She was telling me that two of the boys, because of the what they've learned in the school with the woodwork, they've been offered apprenticeships. So that was great. I mean, we never in our wildest dreams thought it would come to that, but there's two of the kids got apprenticeships. Another one she identified who's looking to start up on his own. You know, he's got that level of confidence now. But basically, most of them, because they've got the level of skill, not just in woodworking, but in animal husbandry, whether it's the chickens or the cattle, although the chickens at the moment are a non-entity. That died after the floods in 2015 because they ate them all. You know, it was just a nightmare. But because of those skills in animal husbandry, in carpentry, and sewing, and all the other things that they do, they've got a wee goat herd as well now. Some of them have learned quite quickly how to grow things, and because they've got that skill base, they are welcomed back into the communities from whence they originated, and they in turn are able to pass these skills on to other folk in the community. But I mean,
what sort of age are they then when they leave the school?
They're usually between 16 and 18 when they leave the school. Yeah.
They'll be welcome back to their community, which is interesting. Yes.
Yeah, and it's great because, well, it's good in two ways. Because first of all, they are accepted, and that's good, even although they can't communicate. And while they're taught how to communicate in the school with sign language is of no use to them back in the village, because none of the villagers know how to communicate with sign language. So it's fine when they're together or with the school. But some of them are now actually going on to higher education. I don't know the percentage. Modesta didn't tell me, but she did indicate that some of them, despite the difficulties, have got through the examination process, and they're now going into various forms of higher education, which is, you know, it just speaks volumes for what they're taught in the school. And I mean, we had a period there, 2 years, I think it was. The only teacher who was getting paid in the school was the woodwork teacher, because we were paying him. The government just stopped paying the teachers. It was as simple as that. I mean, you never cease to be surprised in the country. We were sitting having breakfast one morning. We were up on Lake Malawi at this point, heading back, and we spent a couple of days up in Lake Malawi. And this was about the second time we were out there. And they put 12 guys into self-catering accommodation. Well, I ask you, the only thing we managed to do was screw 2 optics to the wall, and that was about it. But we used to go to this wee beach cafe for our breakfast, lunch and dinner. And one morning we were in, they had electricity and the news was on. And they intimated that as and from today, the government will no longer be paying the police service. They will require to generate their own income. Well, within a couple of hours, when you were out in the car, you were getting stopped, you were getting fined for anything at all. And it's still like that in parts of Malawi to this day. You have no idea. It just never fails.
Presumably there are other schools, you know, that take children that don't have these problems somewhere in the vicinity, are there? Yeah.
If you're in, you know, children in Blantyre or Lilongwe or places like that, they've got modern schools that are equivalent to ours. But in the rural areas, well, that slide that you saw, the road, the main road with the children walking up the side, in those rural areas, the children will walk 5-6 miles or so a day to get to school. They're desperate for education, and then they'll walk 5 or 6 miles back home again. And the school that we used to visit when we were up in the lake, it was run by the owner of the beach restaurant place that we used, and she used to take us along there. And it's very, very basic, and the kids are just so desperate to get taught, and they come from miles around. But in the major cities like Blantyre and Lilongwe, it's more or less what you would expect to find here.
Thank you very much. A very enjoyable talk, and it gives me an insight into a part of the world I'm never likely to be in, but it's something I would like to maybe even go online and have a look at Malawi and learn a bit more about the country. So thank you.
Fascinating place, it really is.
Yes.
Great to have that Scottish connection. It goes back quite a long number of years as well, doesn't it?
That's right. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
The Scotland-Malawi partnership do incredible work. In fact, I get notification the other day there that at the COP26 thing in Glasgow, the president of Malawi is going to be over, and I get invited down to a meeting with them. I can't go otherwise committed, but it's, as I say, if you contact them, they'll give you information about all sorts of manner of things.
Yeah. Thank you, Fiona.
Thank you very much. Very interesting. Thank you. Just mute that now.
Yes. So, are any more questions, ladies? Or should we let Ramsay go and enjoy his afternoon? Yeah. So thank you so much, Ramsay. That was a wonderful, wonderful talk. And I'm sure you've inspired everyone to either as we've just heard, to go online and find out a little bit more about Malawi, or to find out a little bit more about Scotland and Malawi, and see how people can help individually or collectively. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you to Anne, and also thank you to Jessie. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye bye. Bye bye.